Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring some really thought-provoking stuff
Yeah.
and maybe even get into some controversial territory.
Okay.
We are diving deep into the work of Julius Evola,
Julius Evola.
Italian philosopher who, back in 1971, wrote this really sharp
Wow.
critique of American civilization.
Yeah.
He was kind of a rebel, you know,
Really?
a philosopher who really went against the grain and challenged like the very foundations of modern society,
Okay.
all that stuff.
Quite interesting. It's fascinating how he, even writing back then,
Yeah.
hones in on certain aspects of like American culture and society
Right.
that are still debated today.
Yeah.
So let's see what he got right.
Okay.
What might be outdated and what might make us rethink some of our own assumptions.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
One of the things that really struck me was how Evola goes after this cherished American ideal
Yeah.
of the self-made individual.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's practically in our DNA, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Yeah. But Evola argues that this focus on individual achievement,
Yeah.
while celebrated, can actually hinder
Oh,
the development of true personality.
really?
He suggests that in a society
Yeah.
obsessed with qualifications and social mobility, people become driven by ambition
Right.
and external validation.
Mm.
They're so focused on what they do and achieve that they lose sight of cultivating their inherent qualities, like who they are at their core.
So it's like climbing the ladder of success,
Yeah,
but maybe ending up on the wrong roof.
that's a great way to put it.
Like you achieve all these things, but maybe you lose yourself along the way.
Evola argues that this constant striving for success,
Right.
if it's not grounded in something deeper,
Yeah.
can lead to a kind of emptiness.
Hmm.
He even compares Americans to a society of pariahs,
Wow.
individuals without a defined role or caste,
Yeah.
constantly striving for dominance in the modern world. It's a pretty harsh assessment.
Pariahs.
Yeah.
That's strong language.
Yeah, it is.
But I can see what he's getting at.
Yeah.
And we all know people who seem to have it all,
Right,
the career, the money, the house, but still aren't truly happy.
right.
Yeah.
And this ties into another key point Evola makes,
Okay.
the illusion of progress.
Okay.
He completely rejects this idea of America as a young nation with a bright future.
Huh?
Instead, he argues that America actually represents a senile
It's
and decadent stage of Western civilization.
That's not exactly the image we like to
I
portray.
know, right?
Mm.
But to understand Evola's point here,
Okay.
you have to consider his view of history.
Uh-huh.
He believed that civilizations go through cycles of growth and decline,
Okay.
and he saw America as embodying the final
Wow.
decaying stage of Western civilization, magnifying all the negative aspects of European modernity.
So instead of being on the cutting edge of progress,
Yeah,
he's saying we're actually on the decline.
that's right.
It's like we're so obsessed with innovating and disrupting that we've lost sight of what's truly valuable.
Exactly. Evola would say this constant pressure to be new and cutting edge can sometimes be a form of societal decline. We end up chasing the latest trends and technological advancements
Yeah.
without really considering whether they're leading us towards genuine progress
Yeah.
or just a more fragmented and materialistic existence.
Okay, this is where things get a little dicey.
Yeah.
Evola's views on American women are,
Yes,
well, let's just say they haven't aged well.
I agree with you there.
He paints this picture of them as being materialistic, lacking genuine emotion,
Right.
driven by superficial desires.
Yes. This is where Evola's work veers sharply into problematic territory.
Yeah.
His claims about American women being primarily motivated by materialism and lacking genuine sexual feeling
Uh-huh.
are based on harmful stereotypes and don't hold up to any serious scrutiny.
It's definitely a jarring contrast to the image of the strong, independent American woman
Yeah.
we often see celebrated today.
Right, but instead of just dismissing his views as outdated, I think it's worth considering the context in which he was writing.
Oh.
Remember, this is 1971.
Oh, right.
The feminist movement,
Yeah.
changing economic roles for women, and the sexual revolution
Right.
were all profoundly impacting gender relations during this period.
Uh-huh.
Evola, in his own distorted way, might be clumsily reacting to these shifts.
So it's like he's looking at these complex social changes
Yeah,
through a very narrow and judgmental lens.
precisely.
But maybe his discomfort points to something real about the anxieties and uncertainties of that era.
He's seeing these seismic shifts in society.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to understand them,
Yeah.
he lashes out with these sweeping generalizations.
Okay, moving on.
All right.
Evola also takes aim at the media.
Okay.
He's particularly concerned about the influence of American media, arguing that it promotes conformity and lowers cultural standards.
Right.
He uses the example of Italian radio programming becoming Americanized, which, in his view, was not a good thing.
And this is where his argument resonates even more strongly today, don't you think?
I mean, think about the global reach.
Exactly.
Like streaming services, social media, and American entertainment in our own time.
Yes, everywhere.
It's true, we talk about American culture.
Right.
Like, it's this global force.
It is.
Hollywood movies,
Right.
American music, even fast food chains. They're everywhere.
And Evola would argue that this dominance of American media leads to cultural homogenization.
Okay.
It's like a flattening of diversity in favor of a mass-produced, Americanized worldview. It makes you wonder how much space is really left for truly diverse perspectives and experiences.
It's like we're all swimming in the same cultural soup,
Yeah,
even if it doesn't always nourish our souls.
right.
And this connects to another one of Evola's big critiques.
Okay, what's that?
American democracy.
Right. He argues that, in his view, democracy is often used as a mask
Oh, interesting.
to conceal the power of an elite,
Oh, yeah.
highlighting the growing disparity between political rhetoric and economic reality.
It's like saying we're all equal,
Exactly.
but then having this whole hidden power structure operating behind the scenes.
That's Evola's argument.
Wow.
And he would point to the rise of human relations studies in American industry
Okay.
as an example of this manipulation.
So on the surface, these studies seem to be about improving worker well-being,
Right.
but Evola sees them as a cynical attempt to maximize output
Exactly.
and control.
That's his take.
Wow.
He even quotes from one of these studies, which says, and I quote, "The maintenance of the psychological contentment of the employee is as important as the physical. The studies will draw attention to the danger that his mind may tend to wander in a way that may eventually reflect badly on his attitude towards the job."
Wow. It's like they're saying, keep your head down, do your work, and don't ask too many questions.
It's definitely a cynical interpretation,
Yeah.
but it does raise some interesting questions about the relationship between power control and individual freedom in a modern industrialized society like ours.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So after hearing all this, you have to wonder,
What's that?
is the American dream really just a cleverly disguised form of social control?
That's a question Evola wants us to grapple with.
Yeah.
He sees this disconnect between the ideals of freedom and equality and the reality of power structures in American society.
Yeah.
He's basically asking, does the system really work the way we're told it does?
It's pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
And there's more to come.
Okay.
We'll continue our deep dive into Evola's critique of American civilization in part 2.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back.
Right.
And we're still unpacking this dense, thought-provoking
Right.
critique of American civilization from Julius Evola.
It's a lot.
We've talked about the self-made man myth, the illusion of progress,
Right.
his questionable views on women, and the homogenizing effect
Yeah.
of American media.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm really curious to dig deeper into this idea of democracy as a smokescreen.
Okay.
It feels like that's the thread that ties a lot of his critiques together.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Evola sees this huge gap
Okay.
between the ideals of democracy
Yeah.
and the reality of how power operates in America.
Right.
He argues that the hierarchical structure of American businesses, with their emphasis on qualifications and specialization, creates a system where upward mobility becomes increasingly difficult.
But isn't there evidence of upward mobility in America? I mean, people do move up the economic ladder.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, how do we reconcile that with Evola's claim?
Evola wouldn't deny that some individuals
Okay.
achieve upward mobility, but he'd argue that the system is designed to make that the exception, not the rule. It's about maintaining the illusion of opportunity,
Right.
while a select few hold the reins of power.
Well, it's like a carrot dangling in front of a horse.
That's a great analogy.
It keeps you moving, but you never actually reach it.
And Evola argues that this leads to a growing disillusionment, especially among those who work hard but find their progress limited
Right.
by the system itself.
That makes sense. You're told you can achieve anything
Yeah.
if you work hard enough, but then you hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
and realize the rules of the game might be rigged against you.
Exactly. And this connects back to Evola's broader critique
Yeah.
of American individualism.
Uh,
He argues that the focus on individual achievement
okay.
distracts us from the fact that real power resides in collective structures.
So like corporations.
Corporations,
Uh,
government institutions,
okay.
and the elites who control them.
Okay. So it's not just about individual ambition
No,
or a lack of hard work. It's about the system itself
that's right.
being structured in a way that concentrates power at the top.
That's a core element of Evola's argument.
Wow.
He would say that the American dream, as it's often portrayed, is a myth that serves to maintain this power structure.
Okay.
It keeps people striving within the system
Right.
instead of questioning the system itself.
That's a pretty cynical view of things.
It is.
But I can see how it fits with some of the other points he makes.
Right. Yeah.
Like the media promoting conformity
Yeah.
and the illusion of progress.
Exactly.
It's all about keeping the masses distracted and compliant.
Right. Evola would say that the managerial elite, as he calls it,
Okay.
exerts a significant degree of control over the economic and political landscape, further undermining the notion of America as a truly democratic society.
So where does that leave us?
Wow.
If Evola's right and democracy is just a smokescreen, what are the implications?
That's a tough question. And to be fair to Evola,
Yeah.
he doesn't offer any easy answers. He's more focused on diagnosis than prescription.
I see.
But his critique does force us to confront some fundamental questions
Okay.
about the nature of power and the limits of individual freedom in a modern society.
It makes you wonder if we've become so accustomed to this system
Right.
with its illusions of choice and opportunity
Yeah.
that we've lost sight of alternative ways
That's possible.
of organizing society.
That's a thought-provoking point. Evola, with his traditionalist perspective,
Yeah.
would argue that true freedom comes from understanding and accepting one's place
Okay.
within a hierarchical social order.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of us today would probably find that idea pretty outdated and unappealing.
Yeah, I don't think many people are clamoring for a return to feudalism,
Right.
but I can see how his critique raises questions about the balance of power in our society
Absolutely.
and whether our current systems truly serve the common good.
And this is where Evola's critique, however extreme or unsettling,
Yeah.
can be valuable. It forces us to think critically about the assumptions we make about our society
Okay.
and to ask ourselves whether the structures we live within are actually aligned with the values we claim to uphold.
It's a reminder that progress doesn't always move in a straight line,
That's a good point.
and that even the most powerful and technologically advanced societies can be vulnerable to decay and decline.
Right. And that the pursuit of individual success,
Uh-huh.
while important, shouldn't blind us to the larger forces that shape our lives
Yeah.
and the need to engage critically with the systems that govern us.
Okay, lots to chew on here.
Definitely.
Let's continue this discussion in part 3,
Okay.
where we'll explore the implications of Evola's critique for our lives today
All right.
and what it might mean for the future of American civilization. All right, so we've spent the last 2 parts really unpacking this provocative,
Yeah.
often unsettling critique of American civilization from Julius Evola.
It's a lot to take in.
He's given us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Some of it pretty unsettling, some of it maybe
Oh, great.
even a little offensive,
I agree.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think there's a real value in grappling with these ideas.
I agree with you.
Even if we don't agree with all of them.
I completely agree. Evola's work is a challenge, but it's also an invitation to think critically about the society we live in and to question the narratives we've been told about progress, freedom, and the American dream.
So let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
What does all this mean for us here and now in the 21st century?
Mm-hmm.
Have we become so intertwined with consumerism and material success that we've lost sight of, like, the original meaning of the American dream?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Evola would probably say yes.
Yeah?
He saw this tendency toward materialism and superficiality as inherent in modern society,
Yeah.
and he believed it was ultimately leading us toward a spiritual and cultural dead end.
I mean, think about how much of our lives revolve around buying things,
Right.
getting the latest gadgets, chasing after experiences, like this endless cycle of wanting and acquiring, but never really feeling satisfied.
That's a perfect example of what Evola was getting at.
Okay.
He saw this emptiness at the heart of American culture, this void that we try to fill with material possessions and distractions.
But isn't there more to the American dream than just stuff?
Sure,
What about the ideals of freedom, opportunity, and self-reliance?
Those are important values, no doubt.
Right.
But Evola would argue that they've been distorted and co-opted by the very system he's critiquing. He'd say that true freedom comes from living in accordance with natural hierarchies and traditional values.
Okay.
Not from chasing after material wealth or individual success.
That's a pretty different perspective.
It is.
From the one we're used to hearing in America.
Right.
But I think his critique does make you pause and wonder.
Yeah.
If maybe we've become too focused on the pursuit of happiness as an individual, right?
Right.
Without considering our responsibilities to the larger community.
Yeah.
Or the need for shared values and a sense of belonging.
That's a really insightful point. Evola believed that modern society, with its emphasis on individualism and doing your own thing, had lost sight of the importance of community tradition and spiritual connection.
It's almost like he's saying we've become so obsessed with freedom that we've forgotten what it means to be truly connected to something larger than ourselves.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow.
And this ties into his view of America.
Okay.
As the culmination of Western civilization's decline, a society that has embraced individualism and materialism to the point of losing its soul.
Okay, that's a pretty bleak outlook.
It is bleak.
So if Evola's diagnosis is correct, what's the prognosis? Is there any hope for American civilization, or are we doomed to decline and decay?
Evola himself wasn't very optimistic about the future of modern society. But I don't think his critique is meant to be purely pessimistic. I think it's more of a wake-up call. A challenge to look honestly at the forces that are shaping our world and to consider whether they're leading us in the direction we truly want to go.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do we do with all this?
I think the most important thing is to engage with these ideas critically. Don't just accept or reject Evola's critique outright. Take the time to reflect on what resonates with you, what challenges your assumptions, and what sparks your own curiosity.
It's like we've been given a new lens.
Exactly.
Through which to view American society, a lens that might distort some things, but also bring certain aspects into sharper focus.
And that's the power of Evola's work. It forces us to step outside our comfort zones and ask ourselves some difficult questions about who we are, what we value, and where we're headed as a society.
So after diving deep into Julius Evola's provocative and often unsettling critique of American civilization, we hope this has sparked some
I hope so.
interesting thoughts and maybe even a few healthy debates.
Definitely.
As always, we encourage you to continue exploring these ideas on your own and come to your own conclusions.
That's right.
Until next time.